Coming to a comfortable seat. Feeling your sit bones into the ground. Your spine elongating. The crown up towards the sky. Shoulders pulling up towards the ears. Back towards the back. And slide them down towards the ground. Slide your shoulders forward. Slide your shoulders up. Slide your shoulders back. Slide your shoulders down. Slide the shoulders forward. Slide the shoulders up. Slide the shoulders back. Exhale them down. One more time. Let's go back the other way. Slide the shoulders back. Slide the shoulders up. Slide the shoulders forward. And slide the shoulders down. And just feel yourself landing in this space. Breathing deeply. Softening. Allowing. Letting go. The breath beginning to elongate. The face relaxing, the shoulders relaxing. And just begin to maybe circle the torso around a little bit. And just breathe. Nice long deep breaths. Inhaling and exhaling through the nose. Circling the torso around. Opening up the spine, the hips, pelvis, lower back, chest, belly. Nice long deep breaths. And then reverse your circle and go the other way. Reverse it around. Reverse it around. Keep breathing. And come back up into the center. Inhale, elongate. Exhale, turning to your right. Let your left hand come to your right knee, your right hand behind you. Inhale, elongate the spine up. Exhale, slowly turn towards the back. Inhale, elongate up. Exhale, turn towards the back. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale. A couple more. Inhale. Exhale. One more. Inhale. Exhale. Slowly come around towards the front. Right hand to the left knee, left hand back behind you. Inhale, elongate up across the front side. Chest rises, crown rises. Exhale, slowly turn. Inhale, elongate. Exhale, turn. Inhale. Exhale. A couple more. Inhale. Exhale. One more. Inhale. Exhale. And come back to face the front. Let your hands come back onto your knees. Pull your shoulders and chin back. Lengthen up to the crown. And just begin to soften here now. Soften the shoulders. Soften the face. Keep pulling the shoulders a little back, broadening the collarbones, shoulder blades, a little back together. Chest opening. Maybe feeling yourself leaning just a little bit forward. Lengthening up to the crown. Now pull the chin back so you feel the crown aligning over the spine. And now we'll come to watch the breath. Just a nice steady breath. Feeling the chest and belly rising. Feeling the chest and belly falling. Nice soft, steady breath, shoulders relaxing a little bit more. Just becoming aware of the rising and falling of the breath. That life-giving energy coming in. And then letting go of anything we don't need on the way out. Soften the shoulders, soften the face. Keep the spine elongated. Keep pulling the chin a little bit back. Inhale. Exhale. And just watching, noticing the rising and falling of the breath, of the chest and belly. Now moving your awareness to notice the breath as it passes by the tip of the nostrils. A little cool sensation of the breath as it passes by the tip of the nostrils, just inside the nostrils. Notice the relative warmth of the breath as it passes out across the nostrils. Inhale coolness. Exhale warmth. Soften the shoulders. Keep the spine elongated. Chin pulls back. Crown up. Soften the face. Soften the shoulders a little bit more. Keep watching the breath as it passes by the tip of the nostrils. Maybe expand this area just a little bit, taking in the space above the upper lip. See if you can feel the breath passing by the tip of the nostrils, just inside the nostrils, in that space above the upper lip. Focusing on the sensation right there. Keep pulling your mind back to it. When you drift off somewhere else, just pull your mind back to the sensation. Tip of the nose, just inside the nostrils, space above the upper lip. Soften the shoulders some more, lift the heart, pull the chin back, lengthen up to the crown. And bringing your awareness now to the crown of your head, that little spot about the size of a quarter or a $50, right at the crown of the head. Notice if there's any sensation there. Bring your awareness to the third eye center, just between and just above your eyebrows. Bring your awareness to the tip of your chin, the moon center. Bring your awareness to the pit of your throat. Bring your awareness to the heart center. Breathing in and out of the heart center, Ananta chakra. Bring your awareness to this point, the navel point. Third chakra. Just notice any energy, sensation, feelings, emotions emanating from the navel center. awareness to the pubis bone, low in the pelvis. Second chakra energy. Notice any sensations. Any emotions perhaps emanating from the second chakra. And now bring your awareness to the base of the spine, the perineum. Feeling that connection into the ground. Noticing any sensation, any emotion connected with the first chakra, that connection to the earth, sense of belonging. Keep the spine elongated, shoulders pulled back, chin pulled back, crown up, elongating up from the first chakra through all 7 chakras to the crown. Allowing Sushumna, that central energy channel, to start to open, illuminate. And then begin to visualize a white beam of light coming down through the crown chakra, through the 6th chakra, Ajna chakra, the third eye center, through the 5th chakra in the throat, through the heart chakra, center of the chest, through the navel point, right through the center of the body, down into the 2nd chakra, low in the pelvis, down through the base of the spine, the space between the sit bones, the perineum, into the ground. This white beam of light now goes into the ground and up into the sky, infinitely going down into the earth energy, infinitely going up into the sky energy. We are part of this energy line, just visualizing that white beam of light. White beam of light emanating light out through our body into the auric field around us. Softening the shoulders, softening the face, lengthening up through the crown, inhaling. Exhale, soften the face, lengthen the spine. You now feel that energy starting to condense back down into the heart center. This is white ball of light emanating from our heart center, out through our body, out into the energy field, out into the universe around us. We start to feel ourselves as more energy than physical matter. That white energy light emanating from our heart center out through all the nadis, through all the meridians, out through our body into the auric field, out from the auric field, out into the universe. Feeling myself and the Atman becoming one, that universal consciousness. Dissolving away the ego. Back to the source. Allowing ourselves to float deeply in that space. Watching, observing, noticing, allowing, breathing, expanding. And allowing ourselves to re-feel the sit bones into the ground. Feel your shoulders relaxing, your face relaxing, re-land, we land into the body. Bringing that awareness, that vast spacious awareness back into the body. Into this moment, feeling the breath, the rising and falling of the chest. Feeling, noticing, allowing. Being with that divine self, being with that earthly self, that physical self at the same time, and just that softness, that knowingness. Bring the palms together at the heart center. Take a deep inhale. Exhale, let it go with a sigh. Inhale. All that is sacred and divine in me bows to you and honors all that is sacred and divine in you. Namaste. Begin to open our eyes. Maybe rub our hands together a little bit. Come back into the body. So, here we are on our journey still, continuing along and just finding ourselves this kind of little sacred space, this little time of just really being with ourselves, listening to ourselves, listening to what's arising for ourselves, making room and space for it. This is a core part of our practice, allowing ourselves room and space to explore and notice and feel and allow the wisdom to touch us. So as we move into this niyama, the self-study, Svadhyaya, means self-inquiry and study. So we really are very specifically turning our awareness back on ourselves. And this is something that most people don't want to do. This is why people don't go into therapy either, right? Therapy is the same idea. It's just a different technique, different method. But it's this, let's really see ourselves. Let's see who we are. Let's explore who we are and start to recognize our divinity. It's really quite interesting for those. I know quite a few people have explored therapy at some point or another. It's really very similar intention. It's like, who are we, right? Who are we, and how can we be more genuine, be more authentic, be more ourselves, right? So in some ways one could say that yoga certainly predates Freud, and the modern idea of psychology. It's been around for thousands of years, but it really had that same intention, which was, how can we be more authentic, be more ourselves, and in the meantime reduce our suffering, right? Because again, most people don't show up at therapy for the heck of it. Sometimes some people do, but most people don't. Most people show up because there's some pain in their lives. They're experiencing some pain, and they're trying to work with it, trying to see if they can change things in such a way where they don't experience such pain so often. And that's exactly, again, what yoga and meditation were meant to do, And so they're actually wonderful complements to each other. The traditional therapy, cognitive and verbal therapy, along with the practices of yoga and meditation, they're great tools to use alongside each other. They're like two ways into the diamond, right? So hopefully, if you don't have the book, again, I'm going to highly recommend it again because it's better than I remembered, right? So you guys know where to find it. It's on my newsletter. Because this chapter again was very good, very good chapter, and I loved her story at the beginning where she talks about the story of the diamond in the box, right? And that this was a gift that she and her brother had gotten for her father. And she uses that analogy throughout this chapter. And she's very good at metaphors. But it is like that is us, right? We are this diamond in the sort of center of who we are. But we're identifying with all these layers, all these boxes. And we've talked about this before. I've used the analogy of jackets, right? We put on all these different jackets, the mother jacket, the sister jacket, the teacher jacket, the community member. I mean, all these different identities, and we get attached to the identities. It's like getting attached to the boxes. Oh, I got a present. Here's the box, and we get attached to that, as opposed to that kind of essence at our core, at our center, which is this connection back to the Atman. That's what that meditation was designed to try to give us an experience of reunion, of reuniting with this core, spacious, deep okayness, right? That is connected to all things, all times. All you lose that time continuum, that time-based reality, and so there is this part of us that is there. The Atman, or the witness, I should say, is the sort of vehicle to it, this ability to start to develop our witness consciousness, the ability to be aware of what we're feeling, what we're thinking, obviously what we're doing, to actually be able to step back and watch this. This is a key function of our spiritual practices, and it's a key step. It's not the end all. I mean, being aware and being self-aware and being able to tap into the witness is a crucial step. It's not the final frontier, however, because eventually we start to turn that awareness back on itself. We start to become aware of being aware. And at that point, this sort of spaciousness starts to, and maybe you kind of started to get it towards the end where we had that sort of light expanding out and coming back in. You could start to get this experience of beyond this physical body, beyond the mental body, beyond the thoughts, beyond the emotions. There's another realm in which we can start to reside. And from that place, we start to tap into some infinite wisdom which isn't really even cognitive awareness. It's so we can't describe it necessarily or say pinpoint it and say that it is, but it starts to inform us. It starts to inform us of who we are, and then from that place we actually start to it like almost informs our cognition. It starts to help us make better choices for ourselves, not through some thinking process, but actually through some knowing process, knowing our deep okayness, knowing that we're going to be okay no matter what. I think there's so much right now going on with not knowing, right? There's so much ambiguity right now in our times, in our world. It can actually get overwhelming to not knowing, and so that's real, and so that is a real level of reality. So we don't want to dismiss that's going on, but at the same time, wouldn't it be nice if we could start to step back and know our okayness, regardless of all this unknowing, all these not knowing the outcomes. I mean, people like to know what's going to happen, right? And that's really, when I say people, I really mean our ego. Our ego is a self-preservation and pleasure-seeking device. So it wants to be in pleasure, and it wants to survive. And so knowing what's going to happen helps to feed the ego. Not knowing what is going to happen actually feeds the spirit. Being able to sit in the unknown expands our capacity for the divine, for the awareness, for that which is unknown, right? And so we actually build a capacity for being with all things. And some of what comes into that space, you may have felt this as well. I felt it recently. I'll tell you a story about yesterday. Is a lot of tenderness, a lot of feelings of vulnerability, feelings of insecurity, right? And most of us are not going to sign up for, put me on for more vulnerability and insecurity, please. Could you put me down for that experience? That's not likely that we're going to do that. But what this time is an opportunity to explore those experiences and to recognize that those experiences are actually the truth of human existence. Human existence is actually a vulnerable, finite experience, and so it's there's an inherent vulnerability and insecurity in that, because we are not going to be here forever. So being in that right now brings up all kinds of our fears and our egoic fears and insecurities around that, because the ego is a survival mechanism and a pleasure mechanism. That's really, it's two things. And so if it's not reinforcing those two things, it's actually breaking down the ego. That's what tapas was about in some way. Tapas was where we formally try to create disturbance or heat for transformation, to actually break that egoic structure down, to break down those boxes that we have ourselves in. That I'm a good mom, I'm a good wife, I'm a good whatever, right? Which is all labels, right, that we've put on ourselves. We're trying to shake that up and get beyond it, to sort of just stop worrying about those things. Like, recognize, okay, we've got that down. None of us would probably be here. We would, if we didn't have some competencies in that. But actually doubling down on those competencies is not going to get us free. Like, this didn't work out, I got to try harder, right? Just be. It doesn't mean dismiss or run away. Actually, running away is not the answer either, right? It's just not to fight it, and to be with it. And so, this chapter, I think, is one of the best in this book, and how we start to turn our powers of observation back on ourselves. In ourselves. And part of Svadhyaya is also the study of Scripture, which is, again, there are others that have come before us that have been on this journey. As I said before, yoga and meditation, thousands of years, right? So there's some masters along the way that have gone very, very deep with this, and we can pull them out, just like pulling this out. We could consider this Scripture if we want, right? Scripture is really in the eyes of the beholders. What takes me to another realm, what resonates with me and takes me further and pushes me to another possibility. So it's any authentic guide that takes us beyond ourselves, right? So there are accepted ones, or more generally accepted ones, right? And then there's some esoteric ones out there too. So we use these other teachers, these other masters, to help guide us, but we still have to go through it. The one problem that with Scripture is that you could get caught up being a studier of Scripture. We could just study and read and and then we're too much in our heads. We're too far into our thinking about enlightenment than actually doing the work of enlightenment. It can become another abstraction. And so allowing ourselves to be opened, to be burned in that fire, allowing ourselves to just soften and cry. So speaking of which, I'll just tell you a little bit about what happened to me last night, and then I'll do a little bit of reading. So yesterday was a kind of rough day for me on a number of levels. Had some stuff go on in the morning where there was a lot of ambiguity and uncertainty, and then I had a couple of work things happen, some work projects that I'm working on that I'm struggling with a little bit to try to kind of get going. And then I had another I have a doctor's appointment coming up where I have to deal with something, and so there was some ambiguity around that. And so I dealt with that a little bit yesterday as well, had a conversation on the phone with my doctor. And so all of this stuff was just bringing up lots of uncertainty for me, right? And I'm leaning into it as best I can and trying to make the best decisions, or at least just hold the space. It was like some of it wasn't making any decisions. It was just like, let me just be with this uncertainty and not knowing, and trying to stay present with it, and trying to listen, and trying to see if there's, okay, what's the best next thing to do, and that sort of stuff. And this happened quite a bit yesterday. It was a kind of alignment, right? At the end of the day, kind of unwinding, having a little something to eat, and I'm watching the PBS NewsHour, and on the end of the segment, so this is like at 9 o'clock at night, there's this piece about this woman who's caring for her child, and her child has some really terrible birth disease, like a disease that is basically going to kill her child. Her child is going to die from it before she's expected is before she's 4 years old. She will pass away. She's probably about 2 right now, but they just show this kind of story about this woman and her child, and her caring for her child, and at the very end of the piece, you see the child's father hand the child to the mother, and the mother holding the child and kissing the child, and I just lose it. I just completely lost it, and I'm just crying, and I'm holding my head, and I'm just a mess. And part of it was about this woman and her child, which was really beautiful and sad at the same time. But it was mostly me. It was mostly me just having my little cathartic breakdown about having a kind of day in which it was hard isn't quite the right word. It was what it was, but it was challenging from a standpoint of the egoic standpoint. The ego, again, wants to get into pleasure and a sense of like certainty and a sense of kind of, I got this one, that kind of feeling, that's where the ego wants to go. And I wasn't having much of that yesterday. And so I just kind of fell apart. From a spiritual standpoint, that is a great moment, right? That is a moment of release. That's a moment of catharsis. That's a moment of just surrender. Right, and we're going to talk more about surrender next week. And so it was a good thing. It was, and I know you guys can all relate to that in some way. Crying is a good thing, right? Sometimes it comes up on us, and we're not, it's like, where is that all coming from? Where is all that energy? And then I realized, I've had a rough day. Not a terrible day, not like a woe is me day, just one of those days where you're kind of, in a lot of uncertainty. And so being able to say, okay, that's all right, is actually part of what makes life beautiful, interesting, and all that kinds of stuff, right? So you're juxtaposing the beauty, and again, I think using that example of that mother with her daughter is a really good example, because you're juxtaposing the beauty of these two things, right? This mother's love for her daughter, and the daughter's appreciation of it. Even the daughter can't speak. I mean, there's lots of stuff going on, but you could palpably see this love and appreciation for each other, right? You could feel it, and at the same time, that it's going to end soon. Like this is not that this mother is never going to see her child to adolescence or beyond. So there's this kind of incredible beauty and sadness and all that sort of stuff wrapped up into that moment. But that's really our lives. That moment that I'm describing is our whole lives. And so it's actually happening all the time. We're just not as aware of it until we see it right there. We see it and we experience it. That's Svadhyaya. You ready? All right, I'm going to stop for a second, and I'm going to open it up if anybody would like to make a comment before I do a little bit of reading. I think Barbara would like to say something.
Well, after we closed last week, I remember saying to you guys, some people who are still online, I had not spoken for a couple of weeks because when you're talking to me, my brain is going and I'm going, well, how will I respond? And I'm thinking, I'm bringing it all back to myself. And I just wanted to spend more time listening to what you had to say, because I think that's important. It's taking in what you're saying rather than my monkey brain going, okay, yeah, this is. But what you were saying about ambiguity today really resonated with me, specifically today, because yesterday I had a challenging day. I ended up having an emergency appendectomy, which was not what I was expecting. I thought I had food poisoning and I was going to go. I finally called 911 at 8:30 in the morning after throwing up all night and thinking I had food poisoning. Went off in the ambulance to Norwalk Hospital. Got there, at least got some pain medications, nausea medication, they sort of filling me with fluids. And then they sent me off to a CAT scan. And I'm like, okay, fine, whatever. I've had CAT scans before. And I remember while I was doing it, he said, now raise your hands above your head and stretch out. And I went, I can do that. I do yoga. And then he goes, you can relax now. And I go, oh, good. And then it turns out that I said, the doctor comes in to me after the test, and he goes, I go, diverticulitis? And he goes, nope, appendix. And I go, surgery? And he goes, yep. When? Right now. I went, okay, all right. And then he told me a couple of other things, more details. And so when you talk about ambiguity, first of all, I never wanted to inconvenience anybody by calling 911 to have the ambulance come. And it turned out that those people know me. I've lived in town a long time, so those people know me, and we've been friends for many years, volunteers. And so they really I felt like they were carrying me, caring for me. And then, I had the surgery, the doctors came and talked to me, and it wasn't a big deal that I was going to have the surgery because it took away the ambiguity. It just, oh, that's what it is. And all I thought it was something else. Mm-hmm. And I'm lucky I went when I did because it was about to explode. And the pain is minimal, I have to say, today. I did your yoga class this morning. I couldn't do the stretching, but I could do the mindfulness and sitting there and just be present with our community that we have through Zoom. And I also realized how many people reached out to me. The very special people reached out to me yesterday and took care of me. I had my best interests at heart. And even my daughter was nice to me. And so when you talk about the ambiguity, you don't know where you fit in necessarily in life. And you may never know. But it just was like, oh, okay, I'm going to have surgery. But the irony also was that I was supposed to have an appointment with my attorney because I was making some amendments to my will. And I go, Glenn, what's the chances of me not signing the will before I go into surgery? So I laughed the entire day. People were so amazing, and they were so sweet and kind and just caring and holding. And I think that was, for me, huge. So that's when we talk about ambiguity, and you were referring to ambiguity. Sometimes you don't know stuff, and then other times you do get a small piece of resolution.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah, I mean, there can be real beauty in that moment as well. Real beauty.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. Anybody else like to add anything before I read a little bit? No? Okay, cool. I'm going to read some from this chapter, and then we'll kind of finish up with. I'll leave some space at the end for us to chat as well. So, again, a lot of this learning is meant to flow over us, right? So it's meant to just touch us the way it's meant to touch us. If we don't often have the cognitive realization, so we're not always able to kind of speak and articulate what we're feeling or having awareness of, but it's still happening, right? The fact that you're here, you're sitting here, you're listening, you're breathing, it's happening. The transformation is happening because it's on some level you're absorbing these stories and these lessons. And so it's not unusual sometimes to just sit and be and absorb and take it all in. The yogis teach that we as human beings are packaged much like the diamond ring. We are at the core divine consciousness. Around this pure consciousness, we are packed in boxes of our experience, our conditioning, and our belief systems. These boxes are like things like how we identify ourselves, what we believe to be true, our preferences and dislikes, our fears and imagination. All of these boxes are informed by country, culture, gender, town, ancestors, and family history, groups we belong to, and our personal experience. So this is really super important, and we've talked about this before, that everything we see and how we see it is because of this sort of conditioning that we have. We see things the way we've been sort of taught to see them, and culture and to see them. And so this plays a huge role in how we see ourselves. We don't see through clear glasses. We see through tinted glasses. And that tinting is that whole conditioning and culturization. And this is really important to know, because it can help us to sort of set the question, like, maybe I'm not really seeing this clearly because of how I was brought up, or how, something I got hung on to. And so this just helps give us a start. We suffer, the yogis tell us, because we forget who we are. We think we are the boxes we are wrapped in, and forget that we are really the divine hiding inside. Svadhyaya, or self-study, is about knowing our true identity as divine and understanding the boxes we are wrapped in. So it's both. It's about trying to access that divinity, but also understand how we got these identities and why we're so connected to them. So this is sort of that, again, why I talk about it as kind of the original therapy, right? We're looking at these identities closely. We can find clues about our boxes by watching our projections, by the process of tracing our reactions back to a belief, and by courageously looking at life as it is. This process, knowing ourselves and the boxes that adorn us, creates a pathway to freedom. the ability to shift our identification from our ego self, our boxes, to the witness, and finally to our true identity as divinity itself, is the joy of this jewel of self-study. So remember I talked about the yamas and niyamas being a map, a roadmap. This is what she's talking about right here. The ability to shift our identity from our egoic self, that self that is sort of pleasure, survival, organized, to the witness, to that ability to watch, observe, to finally our true identity as the divine. So this is that. It's sort of showing us where we're going. And of course, we can kind of take stock of, well, where am I? How much time do I spend in this sort of egoic sense of myself? How much time do I spend in the witness? How aware am I of my own divinity, right? It's like, there's no right or wrong here with this. It's just where it is. The world and others simply reflect back to us what we are seeing, not what is there. It is as if it is as if wherever we look, there are only mirrors that show us pictures of ourselves. We cannot love or hate something about another person or the world unless it is already inside of us. The world gives you what you see. You can experiment with this truth by changing your story about what you see. It's amazing. So you can start to change your idea about somebody. And then you will see them differently. You will notice the world changes to fit the story you are telling. And this is where these stories we have about ourselves, these stories of inadequacy or whatever, the world will start to show up to reinforce the way we see the world. The Buddhists say that the universe dies when you do, because you have created your own little world of reality. As you begin to steadfastly pay attention to what you are saying to yourself about the moment, the other person, yourself, and life, you will get clues about the boxes you have wrapped yourself in that create your own little universe. All of these utterances are projections of the parts of yourself you love, don't love, can't see, or can't yet accept. This is pretty powerful stuff right here. I mean, she's getting right at it. It's like, if you don't like your life in some way, it's because you are the problem, right? It's not your life, it's you. And now this is hard. This is a little harsh. Okay, I'm not trying to say this like, you have a problem. It's the fact that we are seeing ourselves in some way and seeing the world in some ways that is manifesting the problems, okay? And we are seeing things as like, not working out for us in some way, but at some level, we have set that whole thing in motion through both through our ideas about how the way the world is going to show up, but also our conditioning about it showing up. It's kind of like, it's that same thing of, someone can look outside and see it's raining and go, oh, this is a crappy day. And another person can look outside and say, oh, it's raining. That's awesome, right? Like you're having a different, it's the same piece of evidence out there, but you're having a completely different perspective on it based on your assumptions about how the world is supposed to show up. This is a huge realization, huge. And, one of the things that I started to say before is like, one way of measuring your enlightenment to see how enlightened you are is to notice how often you get frustrated. If you get frustrated a lot, then we do this compassionately. This is why these other yamas and niyamas are first. The ahimsa, satya, parigraha, santosha, all these other things that are help to support us, is so we can get to this self-study. Because once we get to this, it gets very humbling pretty quickly, right? And all right, which is okay, because the humbling is like, that's part of the softening up, the transformation. But when we start to look at, things like frustration, that's me. That's not the situation. The situation just is. And I'm not saying every situation is pleasant. It's not. But how we feel about it is because of us. It's because of the way we've come to expect the world to show up in a certain way. And so this is when we start to take that level of self-responsibility for how we are, it's like, boom, we can start to free. When I start to realize my feelings about what's going on is my creation. I've created that. Our conditioning and formation of beliefs begins very early in childhood. Recently, I watched a group of young children emerging out of a school for recess. I heard one child yell, "Freedom at last." I chuckled, but couldn't help wondering how this child's belief would further develop and influence the rest of his life. We learn to accept our family's way of doing things and to pattern ourselves after cultural norms. These early conditionings continue to form and move deep inside us, creating pieces of our identity. And to that, our reactions or to our own life experiences, and we become neatly wrapped in layers of packaging. When faced with any disharmony or tendency to blame what is outside of us, our tendency is to blame what is outside of us and then justify that we are thinking what we are thinking and feeling. If we are courageous enough to trace the disharmony back to ourselves, we can begin to unpack our boxes and open up vast amounts of freedom that bring us closer to our true essence. I want to read one more part and then we'll open it up for a little discussion. So Anthony DeMello, who you guys might remember, I read this in the first class this morning, was the guy who wrote that little teeny book, The Way to Love, that I used to use in class. Anthony DeMello calls these belief systems models of reality. He states, we are happy when people, things conform and are unhappy when they don't. People and events don't disappoint us. People and events don't disappoint us. Our models of reality do. It is my model of reality that determines my happiness or disappointments. It is as if we wrap ourselves in the boxes of our belief systems and conditioning, and then when something doesn't conform to our system, we fight with all our energy to justify our system, right? The fight or flight thing. We either bolt or we fight to justify the system rather than to unpack the box. DeMello's message is that when we fight to keep our belief system, it is as pointless as if my dad had wanted to keep his Christmas present wrapped and never open it to see the gift waiting inside. Like a gift waiting to be opened, every event that life presents us is a precious opportunity to learn the truth about the boxes we have ourselves packaged in. And it is especially the people we can't stand and the interruptions that drive us crazy that hold the greatest potential for us. Anthony DeMello put it like this: every time I am disturbed, there is something wrong with me. I am not prepared for what has come. I am out of tune with things. I am resisting something. If I can find out what that something is, it will open the way to spiritual advances. So, there's a lot here. I mean, this one chapter, those I just quoted from about 6 pages there, okay? And one could spend, this is what one spends one lifetime on really doing, is these last couple of niyamas, right? The last couple of observations, which sort of everything else on the roadmap here is to kind of build up for this tapas work, this self observation work, and then the last niyama as well, which we'll get to next week. So this is kind of where the rubber starts to meet the road, and it's like, okay, do I really want to get free? Or, you have these choices in life. Life is going to be challenging, right? It's going to have pain. It's going to be challenging. It's going to be beautiful too in a lot of ways. The question really we have to ask ourselves as yogis is, do I want to work on spending all that energy and challenge trying to reinforce the boxes, right? Reinforce those boxes that surround the diamond. The as I say, do we want to gild the cage, right? Do I want to? And one can do that. It's not the worst thing in the world. That's what most people here in Fairfield County do. It's it's an okay path, but it's hard and it's difficult, okay, and it takes a lot of energy. And the other way is I want to get free. All right. And that's hard too, because you got to do this work that she's, we got to start to look in there and sort of say, wow, okay. I'm not so sure about this. I'm going to be like I had my head in my hands last night crying, right? That's going to be part of the journey. So but the question is, which one is going to get you to the deeper level of happiness, peace, equanimity, connection with yourself, connection with others, and ultimately what's maybe going to be able to get there without being on that treadmill, right? Because the boxes one requires this never ending. There's no real rest in that. There's no real deep rest, because there's always more to do to reinforce the boxes. Ultimately, the spiritual path is about release and being and allowing, and can I be free? And for most of us, let's face it, it's going to be a balance, right? If we can create some kind of hybrid life of being the householder and participating in the material realm with the wisdom of the spiritual, then that's probably a pretty good existence and good life. And so we'll see where this all takes us. Let's see, it's 1 o'clock right now. I think what I'm going to do is wrap this little portion up, and then I'll open it back up to discussion. So don't go anywhere. I'm just going to kind of finish out on the recording right now, and then we will open up to a post discussion for people. So let's just close our eyes for a moment. And this is kind of a nice transition, because you can have a moment to just not even collect your thoughts, but to just kind of collect yourself. Feel yourself landing in this space. And then from that place, maybe you'll feel compelled to share. Maybe you'll just sit in that space for a little longer. So once again, feeling the sit bones into the ground, feeling the crown up towards the sky. Soften the shoulders, soften the face, lengthen the spine. Take a deep inhale. Hold the breath, suspend, chin lock, root lock, pulling it up, clear Sushumna, that central energy channel. Exhale out with a sigh. Inhale again. Hold, chin lock, root lock, pull up. Exhale. One more time, inhale. Hold, engage, pull up. Exhale. Bring your palms together, shoulders back and down. Inhale. Shanti, Shanti, Shanti.